Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing my April wrap up. So all of the books that I read in April. So in April, I think I had a better reading month than March because I did enjoy a lot more of the stuff that I was reading in April. I finished 5 books. I DNF'd 2 books. And the 2 books that I DNF'd were both from my TBR clear out project. One was a bonus book, one was actually from the TBR, but even so, I've been having a lot of DNFs from my clear out project, but that was kind of to be expected considering that it's made up of all of the books that I have sort of been putting off reading for one reason or another that I may have lost interest in. So going in, I kind of knew that like it might be more DNFs than not. But it is still, I'm always still like a little disappointed when I DNF books. I'm hoping to find a hidden gem that I'm like, why did I put it off so long? But so far, a lot of DNFs. Anyways, let's just get into it. We'll start with the DNFs. So the first one that I have was the one book that was from my TBR clear out project. Also, if you're not familiar with what this is, at the beginning of the year, I track all of what year I buy each of the books on my physical TBR. So at the beginning of the year, I took the 10 books that have been on my physical TBR the longest, made that into my TBR for the year, and I am trying to get them off my shelf one way or another, whether I read them, DNF them, or unhaul them. I just want to clear them out, refresh my TBR, so they don't just languish there for years. So the first one that I have is Firethorn by Sarah Micklem. This, I was really hoping that this was going to be like a hidden gem that I just like had been putting off for no reason. But honestly, like I could not get through this. I got about 50% of the way into the book. And my main, like I have more specific issues with it, but my main feeling was this was so boring. It was just so incredibly boring. But more specifically, okay, so this is fantasy, but it is the type of fantasy where it's like, this is pretty much just like, it feels almost like a historical fiction in like the setting, but it's technically a fantasy world. In this, we are following our main character, Firethorn, who was found as a child and was raised by this noblewoman, or I don't know if she was noble or if she was just wealthy, but she was raised by this woman who had, you know, land. She was a widow, and this woman taught Firethorn about like herbalism. But at the beginning of the book, this woman who she refers to as the Dame has passed away, and Firethorn is now in this weird position where she's sort of been raised as like a daughter of the house, but she has no actual standing in this house. And so she's sort of in this like weird position, especially as a new lord comes into the house and takes over and does not treat her very well. And so she ends up running into the woods, where she discovers, this is all like in the prologue also, but she discovers this kind of magical tree where she eats the berries and hallucinates, and then like from there, the description of the book says that she gets some kind of magical powers. I got 50% of the way into this book and have yet to see any magical powers. But okay, so I mean, that's one of my issues with this, is that I'm like, this promised me magical tree powers. 50% of the book, 0 magical tree powers. I could have stuck it out and waited to see those come to fruition if I had liked other things about this book, but I did not. Firethorn as a character, well, okay, no, let's start with the plot itself. There are things about the plot that just don't make sense, because Firethorn, so she runs into the woods and she decides that she's going to live in the woods for a year and then she's going to come back. With no explanation as to why that is, because that makes no sense to me. If if there is a bad situation, then why will it be different 1 year later after just wandering around the woods for a year? The other thing is that the story that she told everyone else, like before she left, was that she was going to move to the city to learn how to become a fabric dyer. That's the story she told people. Which, like, that sounds like a better plan than wandering around the woods half dead for a year and then just going back to the bad situation that she started in when, like, nothing has changed except that a year has passed. Like, she had a workable plan. Why didn't she just do that? I don't understand, because, and we get no real explanation as to like why she wouldn't have done that and why she chose to just wander around the woods. And it's not like she has any survival skills. She truly is wandering around like half dead the entire time. She keeps like poisoning herself but with berries and almost dying. That's pretty much the entire prologue. She eventually comes back after a year. She, at some festival, she like sleeps with this guy who turns out to essentially be a knight. They call him something else, but he's essentially a knight. And then she just like follows him on campaign from like camp to camp. And like he sucks. Like he's not a good guy. And here's the thing, comparatively to all of the other men around her, he is slightly better, because literally every like man in this story tries to SA her one time or another, except for this guy. That is a low bar. And like, he still doesn't treat her well. He's very possessive and jealous. He, you know, slaps her one time, and yet she's obsessed with him and is like trying to figure out how to make sure that like he doesn't stray and that he should be just as obsessed with her. And she's like worried about what his feelings are about her and all of this. I'm just like, why? Anyways, so he's terrible. Honestly, her obsession with him makes me like her less. And their whole dynamic is just like not interesting to follow. And I can't tell if we're supposed to be, like, I think that we're supposed to be emotionally invested in their relationship, but I also cannot imagine that is the case, because like, what relationship? He's so terrible. Anyway. I just like, I did not like that. Also, this is another book that I think unnecessarily included sexual assault, because she is assaulted very early on, like in the prologue. That is one of the kind of like one of the inciting incidents to forcing her to running off into the woods. But then after that, it really has no lasting impact on like her character or the plot. Anyways, did not enjoy this, could not get through it. I did like the writing style. That was maybe the one positive that I enjoyed about this. The other book that I DNF'd was Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. This was one of my like bonus books, which was not part of like the main, you know, Clear Out Project TBR, but was sort of a bonus for books that I thought had the most potential to kind of just languish on my shelf. So I'm sort of preemptively trying to get to them. So I have been wanting to read an Ann Patchett book for a long time, just because I hear a lot about her, but she writes more like literary fiction, literary historical fiction, which isn't really a genre that I read a lot of. And so and her books never really sounded that interesting, even though people that I have similar fantasy taste to have like, if they also read literary fiction, they like will rave about Ann Patchett. Anyways, I picked this one up because of her books. This one sounded like the most like it would be something I would be interested in, but it ended up just not working for me. I think that, I mean, okay, so this is about a family during COVID lockdown. We are following this woman who she and her husband live on a cherry farm, and they have 3 adult daughters who at this point have all come back to live on the farm during lockdown. And the daughters are asking their mother about this story from her past, because when she was younger, the mother had briefly been an actress. She had dated this man who then later went on to become this like superstar, like this, you know, huge celebrity. And so her daughters are like asking her for this story from her life. I think conceptually I like the idea of the story, but I don't know, there are a few things that just like weren't working about this for me. I think part of it is that it was maybe a little too slice of life-ish for me. I didn't feel like we got a lot of like depth or connection to these characters. There wasn't really character development, but that also, I mean, I think that's just sort of the nature of this type of story, that it is taking place over a relatively short period of time. It is more slice of life. It's not really, the point is more so to just capture the moment as opposed to show like development in these characters. But I just felt like there wasn't a lot of connection or depth to the characters for me to hang on to. I also felt like there wasn't a lot of I don't know, like emotion to ground it for me. The main character, the mother who's telling this story, it just felt like on both ends of the story, there wasn't really like emotion. There wasn't really like an emotional investment from the character. It felt like she didn't really even care about the story she was telling. In the flashback sections, it felt like she didn't even care about what she was doing. I don't know, I just wanted like a little bit something more from her character, and I think that that was also influencing how I was feeling about, like, I just didn't feel a connection to these characters because it felt like the characters themselves just didn't care about anything. I do think that one thing it really succeeded in was capturing this sort of hazy, nostalgic feeling, and kind of like the feeling of lockdown. Like, lockdown did have this specific feeling to it, and of course people had wildly different experiences of what, you know, COVID lockdown was like, but I do feel like she captured some element of the feeling of it. And I think that this also might just be a book that would appeal more to someone at a different stage in life than I am, or just with different life experiences, because so much of it is about this main character, or about this mother, like really kind of nostalgic and like musing about her children and their lives and their unique personalities, and like the ways that they have changed since they've been children, or the ways that, like, you know, the same person they were at 6 is the same person they are now at like 27. And I think that that is something that if you have an experience more similar to that, then that may resonate with you more. I think it captured that feeling, from the best of my knowledge, well, but it just wasn't something that like resonated with me because I do not have that experience. So I think that this may certainly appeal to somebody more at like a different point in their life than I am. Anyways, this is one that my feeling is not so much that I think it was bad, but I just don't think it was for me, for a lot of different reasons. All right, so let's get into the books that I actually finished. So first up, I started and finished a duology, which is the Isle of Winds duology by Mikia Lucier, which starts with Isle of Blood and Stone, and the second book is Song of the Abyss. The first one starts with the disappearance of the royal map maker and 2 of the royal princes. And then we skip forward in time to the child of the map maker, who is now an adult. So this is like, I don't know, like 18 years later or something. And he is now an explorer and a map maker in his own right, and he is best friends with the current king, who was the third prince who did not disappear because he was a baby and was not there when whatever happened. And so it's Elias, which I always want to pronounce as Elias, but in the book they say it's pronounced Elias. Elias, the map maker, his best friend, who is the king, and their other best friend, Mercedes, who I think is the king's cousin. And at the beginning of this, Elias has just come back from an expedition, and when he gets back, his friends tell him that they have recently discovered 2 mysterious maps that have what look like purposeful inaccuracies that could be like a riddle that they believe is connected to the truth about what happened to the princes and his father on that fateful day. And so while Elias is suspicious, he does start to try and kind of solve these riddles and figure out what exactly happened. And so we're following him as he's doing that. And I just had so much fun reading this. This is the same author that wrote Year of the Reaper, which I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. So I'm trying to read more of her work. And I just enjoy her books so much. They have a very distinct feeling to them. I do think the first half was kind of slow. The first like 40% dragged a little bit. But then once we got more into the plot and the mystery, it really picked up and I was having a great time. I also really I'm a little surprised how much I enjoy the mystery element of her books, because I usually am really not a mystery kind of person. Part of what I enjoyed so much about this is I think she does a really good balance between like characters and mystery plot. And so the kind of character element is really what keeps me engaged, but also the nature of the mystery is very tied to the characters and their relationships and their emotions, and so that also keeps me connected to it. I also find that one of the things that I just really enjoy about the way she does mysteries is that they're like just at the right level for me in terms of like figure out ability. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. Like how much are you able to figure it out? And so for both of these, they both have their own kind of mystery element to them. And there were certainly things about the mystery that I could figure out, that I pretty early on could go like, that's the one who did it. I know who did this. I don't know why, but that one. And then I could like watch it kind of unravel and get to the end, and they explain the why behind it. But it was very fun for me to be like, okay, there's enough like breadcrumbs and hints and like my own intuition that I can figure out who it is, but I don't necessarily know the details of why. And so then I still have to like wait to the end to get that like explanation as to why. And I feel like for me that's like just the right amount of mystery and figuring out that is fun for me. So I had a great time reading both of these. I think I gave both of these 4 stars, and yeah, I'm gonna read more from this author. So this is a great time. After that, I read The Amber Owl by Julia Marillier. This is her most recent release. And this is following our main character, Stasia, who lives in a remote village on the edge of a magical forest. And she has a special and somewhat magical way with animals. She is able to understand their thoughts. But one day, soldiers show up and say that they have an order from the ruler to create a road through this through this forest, and they're ultimately in search of this sort of mythical or legendary like treasure that is in the forest. And so they start destroying the forest in search of it. They enlist the people of the village, and they also honestly are like destroying the lives of the people who live there in this process as well. And Stasia might be the only one who has the ability to save her people and the forest. And overall, I did not love this book. I think that if this had been written by any other author, I might not have finished it. It really wasn't connecting with me, and it was very weird to read because in a lot of ways it just didn't even feel like a Juliet Marillier book. I think both the writing and the characterization lacked the kind of depth and nuance that I usually would expect from Juliet Marillier. This also read a lot younger than I was expecting. I guess I was assuming it was an adult book, but I'm not sure if they really said what age range this was targeted at, but it felt like very young YA. But even in that, like, I've read Juliet Marillier's other YA work, and in comparison, I feel like this was both felt younger, but also just was not as strong and did not feel as like good quality as the other YA that I've read from her. So it was like very strange to read because I was like, this doesn't even feel like I'm reading a Juliet Marillier book. This just doesn't even have the characteristics that I would normally expect from her. This is her first book with a new publisher, so I do wonder if that could have influenced kind of, you know, how the book is written, because I'm sure she has a new team that she is working with and there may be different expectations as to like how the story is written. I don't really know. But yeah, this just was not a hit for me, which is always really sad because Juliet Marillier's, you know, one of my all-time favorite authors. So it's always sad when you like don't love a book from a favorite author. This was kind of disappointing. I gave this one 3 stars. I also read The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar, which is a fantasy fairy tale retelling novella, which I was kind of interested in, but I wasn't like super planning to read it until a friend of mine told me that it was a retelling of The Bone Harp, which is a traditional like Celtic murder ballad that I really loved as a kid, and is the same story that Sister Song by Lucy Holland is based on. So that kind of got me more excited about reading it because I was like, oh, I didn't know that it was a retelling of that murder ballad. And so in this, we are following 2 sisters who have this, their family has this like generations long kind of magical connection to these trees that they raise, and they sing to the trees to help them grow. And the 2 sisters are very close, but they also live kind of on the edge of the boundary between this world and essentially like the Fae world. And there is a character from the Fae world who becomes interested in one of the sisters. However, there is also a mortal man who is interested in her as well, but primarily because he wants her family's land and trees and their magic. And so that creates that creates problems for them. And overall, I enjoyed this. I liked that this gave kind of a different spin on the story of the Bone Harp and the sisters. I think that it put much more emphasis on the sister relationship and giving some of the agency back to the sisters instead of it being so focused on like a rivalry over a like romantic interest, which I definitely enjoyed. I liked the Fae romantic interest. I did listen to this as an audiobook, which I thought was really great because a lot of the story is also revolving around music and songs, and there are parts where the characters sing and the narrator actually sings those parts in the book, in the audiobook, which I really enjoyed as well. So that was really great too. And I gave this 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I have is Jeweled Fire by Sharon Shin. This is the third book in the Elemental Blessings series, which I have been reading and just really enjoying. And this third book was so fun, and I'm so glad. Like, I was reading and I was like, we are back, because the first book in the series I loved. The second book really was not that good, and I was a little concerned about this third book, but the third one was so great. In this, we are following a princess who we met in previous books. She's traveling to another country, and when she gets there, she discovers that there is a lot more sinister stuff than she had expected. There's a lot of court intrigue and some mysterious deaths that they are trying to decide if these are connected or not, as there are various players who are all vying to become the heir to the throne, because the queen of this kingdom is trying to choose her heir. So there's a lot of court intrigue going on here, that she is just sort of dropped into the middle and trying to like figure out what's going on. I thought it was really like fun and interesting to see this character in another country, so we get to see sort of the culture clash, or like the differences between the different cultures. We also get characters from some other countries that we've not experienced before, which I really enjoyed as well. I also just really liked the main character in this one a lot more. I think she was just a much more interesting and dynamic character. I think she also had a lot more like internal conflict going on. She's a character who she's very like outspoken and can be very bold and can be kind of brash and rub people the wrong way. And she knows that sometimes people don't like her and she does rub them the wrong way. She is very much like she's just going to be herself and refuses to like be changed. But she does have this sort of internal conflict of feeling very like people don't like her, people don't care about her. And so that kind of, you know, conflict for her within herself, I just thought was very interesting, but I also really enjoyed about her that she was still so determined to just be herself. This is also one that has like a romance in it, but one, I liked the romance better because I liked both of the characters better than the second book, but also this is return to form, more similar to the first one, where like the romance is not the central storyline. It is truly just like a whisper of a romance. It takes 40% of the book to get to a point where they have a conversation that you're like, maybe that was flirting, I'm not sure. Like, and I just enjoy that so much. I love the way that she does these just sort of whisper of a romance. It takes forever to even hint that maybe there might be a romance. And that's what the first book was like, and one of the things I enjoyed about it, I enjoyed that so much in the second one too. I mean, in this third one. The second one, the romance was much more central and overt, and I just don't feel like it worked out very well. So I think she does a lot better with these sort of subtle background romances. But yeah, so I had a great time with this, and this one also actually had a little bit of a mystery to it because it had all of these like, you know, court intrigue, murders, poison, like all of this stuff, and trying to figure out like, are these connected? What happened? If they are, who could have done it? And this was another one where I felt like it had a great balance of like character to mystery, and that ability to sort of, I could figure out like, I know this person did it. I don't know all the details as to why, but I know who it is. And then getting to like watch it unravel and like figure out the why, which was very fun. So I had a great time reading this, and I gave this, I don't know if I gave this 4 or 4.5 stars, but it was so fun. So those are all of the books that I read in April. I would love to know how your April reading went. If you've read any of these or you're planning to, what are your thoughts? But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.